Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is Emily Cuppernell, and I have with me
Ethan McCormick.
And we are the trainers for PSD's combustion safety training. And it looks like we have a question in already. There are certainly no BPIC used for this, but I assume you're asking about the online training, and
The answer is we think so.
I believe so. I know there are RESNET professional development hours associated with it. There are 7. But I don't know about BPI. So we will check on that. And we now have all of your email addresses, so we can email that out afterward. And we've made note of it. So we're just going to spend about 20 minutes or so going through talking about our online training. And if you have questions at any time, you'll see on the right-hand side you have an expandable menu, the go-to meeting toolbar, where you can type in questions or raise your hand. There's a little circular icon with a hand in the middle of it. So if you'd like to be unmuted, you can push that hand button, or you can type a question in. So this is us.
I'm Ethan on the left.
And I'm Emily on the right, and we happen to be sitting that way as well.
Oddly enough. Yeah, and I have rounded corners, and Emily has square corners. That's just to keep you guessing. In any case, we've both been doing radar training and building science training, as well as software training for quite a while now. I've been with Performance Systems for 11 years. Emily's been with Performance Systems for 10 years, I think. Is that right?
Correct.
And we're both accredited trainers or certified trainers or whatever it is under the
We are a RESNET accredited training provider.
Yeah.
Both of us are RESNET accredited radar trainers, and we've both completed the CAS requirements that was required of us last year.
And I would like to say that more to our credit, we've actually spent a lot of time in the field doing ratings or home audits, etc. So we've both participated in new homes and retrofit programs as analysts and raters.
And we love it.
And we love it. Yeah.
So there's this new requirement from RESNET that they announced sometime this year, that all raters need to pass these 2 combustion appliance zone tests by the end of this year in order to maintain their rater certification. There's a 25-question written test, which is online. It's a multiple choice test. And there's a simulation test that is in this new simulation software. Both of these need to be taken and passed by any rater if you have BPI or not. The other requirement is for those raters that are not currently BPI certified. You need an additional 2 hours of field training on combustion appliance zone and safety. So this is a requirement for all raters by January 1st, 2015, or your rater certification will be placed on probation. Anyone who's becoming a rater or taking rater training this year will have that included as part of their rater training, and they now have 3 tests to pass. So this is what's been rolled out. Our training is designed to help you be successful on these 2 tests. And so far we have
had a lot of success.
Yeah, almost everyone has gotten 100 on both. So
really?
Yes.
That's very high.
It's pretty cool. So what is the justification? We like to put a lot of pictures in our training.
We like to put this picture in the training. This is one of my favorite pictures. It's actually not, yeah, anyway. This is just a good health and safety.
Yeah, so there's a comment that just came through. So the RESNET professional development credits that we just discussed are for our training only. If you take this CAS training from a different training provider, we don't know how many credits you will get. You'll have to talk to them about it. So someone's commenting that this is based on the length and content, actually, of each trainers training. So different trainings will have different PDHs associated with them for RESNET. Thanks for that clarification.
Thanks, Greg.
So we're only talking about this.
Yeah, we're talking about this specifically. So anyway, we like this picture a great deal. I don't know, my guru, Bob, I believe, pulled this off the internet somewhere, but it does imply that somehow doing things right and concerning safety is an issue. This is somewhat of a change in RESNET's. What's a big change in RESNET's recent history, which is that for a long time, BPI, the notion was that people were going into existing homes and they were possibly going to make recommendations to those existing homes that would either make them less safe to live in, or that you needed to make sure that they did not cause problems when they created those. It was thought of as less of an issue in new homes, which had for a long time been the domain of RESNET. But in fact, there's more and more market for ratings in existing homes, and not only that, but there are plenty of opportunities to worry about things like combustion safety in new homes as well. This is part of Energy Star 3.0, for example, has specifications for where it's appropriate to have combustion appliances, what types of combustion appliances are acceptable, and then in certain cases how you would test them. And they refer to either BPI or RESNET standards. And this is the RESNET side of it.
Right. So the rest of the industry is getting on board with health and safety, and we don't want RESNET to be this person.
Right. We don't want RESNET to be the guy who thinks there's something worth watching but isn't concerned about how to appropriately deal with it.
So that's some of the stuff that we'll cover in our course. Our course is 6 to 7 hours online. It's spaced over 3 days. So it's 3 days, 2 hours each day of training, and then we have an hour of helping you get set up with the simulation software, making sure you're up to speed and troubleshooting anything that we can with that. We have three dates between now and the end of the year, and this is what they are.
So just our basic philosophy about live or online trainings is our way of delivering online trainings is very live, like this, and we will quite often try to we'll poll people during the course of it to make sure everyone's engaged. We try not to make it too heavy, because sitting in front of a computer is stupefying enough for most people. So the idea that limiting it to 2 or 3 hours a day, in this case is 2 hours of a day, we have a 10-minute break in the middle of those 2 hours. There will be interactive polls and that sort of thing, so you don't drop off, and so that we answer questions. Not only that, but we encourage people to type in questions during the time so that they're engaged and so that we can answer them. We don't have a asynchronous training plan at all. We have no way of pace it yourself. That's not how we deliver these. Our mission is very much to make sure that we can treat you as close to possible as if we're in the same classroom with you.
So this is our course outline, which is a lot of information for one slide, but this is a list of the things that we're going to be going over during the training. And it's quite a bit.
It is.
And then there's a note on the bottom here. All of our sessions are recorded, so if you want to review something again, you can do that, or if you have some sort of computer failure and you miss part of it, there'll be a recording available. It looks like we have another question coming in. Oh, which is, will it be recorded?
Was that timely or what? Yeah, so Keith, the good question, and I hope we just answered it.
And then there's another question. Should a combustion safety test be done only when the wind speed is low? Which is an interesting question, and we go over...
All of our building science pressurization testing should be done when there is no wind at all, but in
a vacuum,
fact,
no friction.
We would love all that. No, that is not how the protocols are. I can appreciate the question, but
No.
The notion is that in most cases you test with the circumstance that you got, and nature's not always friendly to our line of work.
That is true. And so we have this exciting opportunity that we're part of. If you live or work in New York, we've partnered with NYSERDA to offer 50% off
Of these trainings.
We have a number of other trainings also that are eligible for this 50% off discount. And they're all listed on our website, psdconsulting.com.
Yeah.
So there's another question. Are you sure the required training requires an in-field component? So yes, I'm positive about that. This is only for if you do not have BPI certification. You're required to have at minimum 2 hours of field training on combustion safety. And
so this webinar, we are not intending to.
So someone's also asking if they'll get a copy of this webinar or if it will be offered again. So this is just a brief webinar describing our training for those people that are interested in attending our training. We are doing this once more this year, I believe, at least once. And I don't think that we're giving out copies of this webinar, but I will check and let you know. And Long Island is not listed here. This is a good question. Because they're not, because this is a NYSERDA offering, and they're not.
Does that mean that there's no
part of the NYSERDA funding here, I believe.
Really?
I believe so.
So by New York State, we mean not all of New York State.
Correct.
Well, that's positively sad. All right.
So in the 3 days, 2 hours each day, we'll get clarification on that.
Yeah.
And I see that.
Yeah,
Susan,
we will certainly check. Yeah.
Type that in. I'm not sure about that. So we have 3 days of training. Day 1 is going over health and safety. We're going to go over Chapter 8, which is of the RESNET standards.
That's the performance testing side of RES.
On the webinar, and she's going to talk about that. Susan, are you there? Susan, I have unmuted you, so if you've muted.
And can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Susan Mann. I'm the training manager here at PSD for this program with NYSERDA. If you're on Long Island, you have one of two options. If you are working in a NYSERDA program already, then just by working in a NYSERDA program, you can access the NYSERDA rebate. All you need is a documentation of your participation agreement in whatever NYSERDA program you are working in. Alternatively, if your employer, if you have an address, like you have a second home or you have an employer where you are paying the SBC charge, the only other reason why Long Island isn't included is because they don't pay the SBC charge. So if you have a way of documenting that you pay the SBC charge, you or your employer, then you are eligible. So I hope that helps to clarify things.
Thank you.
So there's some questions. Thanks, Susan. There's questions coming in about the 2 hours of field training and how you'll get that. So our training was originally designed for people who were BPI analyst certified. We are offering 6 field trainings. These are half-day field trainings on combustion, appliance zone, safety, and testing between now and the remainder of the year. 2 will be in New York, 2 are in Massachusetts, and 2 will be in Pennsylvania. And we are finalizing those details right now, and we'll be sending out, we'll be posting that schedule next week.
Yeah,
so stay tuned if you're looking for those 2 hours of field training.
Right, so those 2 hours of field training will be covered in 4 hours of field training, right?
Yeah, we think there's enough.
Right, we don't think 2 hours is really sufficient, although that's the minimum.
If it was a one-on-one training,
it would still not be enough, because then we'd be talking nonstop for at least an hour.
And we are trying to get the field training piece also covered by NYSERDA. I just don't have an answer on that yet, but we have made the ask.
Thanks, Susan. Okay, so here's day 2. We're talking about the CAS, setting up worst case depressurization. We spend quite a bit of time on that, how you troubleshoot it. Talk about actually testing the combustion appliances, make up air for combustion, relevant thresholds. The thresholds and action items are not the same as they are for VPI. So we go over those differences.
And what this, so to reiterate, what we're talking about is both the building science behind this and the protocols that you have to follow. And the building science is the same, although there's plenty of disagreement about it all the time in our industry about the building science behind some of these things. But nonetheless, pretty well established, working through understanding building pressures, understanding vent configurations, understanding carbon monoxide production, all those things on a building science level, but then, of course, there are the protocols and the thresholds that we have to follow. This particular screenshot right here is out of the simulation software. Simulation software is essentially a first-person I don't know what we call that. First-person walk-around, first-person shooter, except you don't shoot. You first-person tester, right? Where you walk around and you get to turn on and off the fans and operate ovens and other combustion equipment.
It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool, and this just happens to be one of the screenshots from it. That there's this little handy clipboard that you carry with you in your simulation. And that helps you. One of the things we'll be talking about are what do you have to do in order to do RESNET compliant combustion safety testing. And a lot of it's supported quite nicely by the simulation software. And where it isn't, we'll describe what you need to do.
Yeah, so we're going to spend about a third of the time going over the simulation and how it ties in with reality and how it ties in with the standards. We have a number of example questions to help prepare you for the written exam.
And what's interesting is that the simulation software itself is exactly the same. You get a license for the simulation software, and that license and that login are exactly what you use in order to take the simulation test. So it's pretty neat strategy, which is that we've had some students who have spent many hours trying a number of different scenarios in the simulation software, and then they are very well practiced for the practical test at the end because it's exactly the same place. So this is the sort of stuff we talk about.
Yeah.
Which terribly exciting.
Carbon monoxide safety, action levels.
But just take an example here. We have the action levels are defined differently, as Emily pointed out, than they are in VPI. We don't have any 9 part per million level in RESNET. We don't have a 100 and 300 part per million oven threshold. We don't have a 400 part per million or a 26 part per million threshold in the flue. And some real distinct differences that align more with, say, the BPI 1200 standard that is also being adopted in a different part of the world, that when we test draft, we're not measuring draft, we measure spillage. We basically are determining that there is or is not draft. So there's some fundamental differences for the way a lot of people have been doing BPI at this point. It's good to have a sense of what they are.
We have a number of different exercises and example problems in the training. For example, RESNET has requirements on where carbon monoxide detectors should be located.
And that's a good example. Those places.
There's 4 different categories of combustion appliances. different rules for each of
And
those.
there's different rules about when do you have to test. So identifying what there is to test. And this is another shot right out of the screenshot from the simulator, and it's got a little helpful imagery and helpful guidance on where you test things, which luckily the simulator agrees with itself.
Someone says, oops, lost my questions. Someone asks, will you be discussing the LBL research and how that is likely to change CAS testing in the future? That's not part of the training on how to pass the RESNET.
Right, it's not part of testing, but we're happy to have that discussion in the appropriate place. So there's, I think, what's being alluded to, not that there isn't always ongoing testing at Lawrence Berkeley Laboratories, there is, but
not always ongoing change in the industry.
And there's not always ongoing change, but we expect over the next couple of years some of the research about which spillage matters, which what kind of backdrafting is high risk and that sort of thing. These are going to help evolve the standards, and as the standards evolve, we certainly want to support them. And that's certainly when we get to that sort of section in. If that question is raised in a training, we're happy to discuss it.
Yes. We have a lot of examples of how different things within the house interact with each other, how supply and return duct leaks might impact the neutral pressure plane and
risk of backdrafting, and all sorts of other things, such as we know that it affects soil gases and et cetera. So this is sort of a walkthrough on some protocol choices, and this is an interesting, for those of you who are BPI certified, the power of opening and closing doors and operating fans. We walk through a bunch of examples with that. The rules are slightly different about how you do it in the RESNET spec than they are with BPI. How you set up the baseline pressure and that sort of thing are all modifications. So
so we have a lot of examples of that, and troubleshooting the worst case depressurization test. It tends to be one of the more difficult concepts for people to grasp.
Yeah, a lot of people get hung up on it, even if they've been doing it a while. When you run into new scenarios.
Yeah, and I think that the software is pretty good at giving you enough things to think about and factor in.
It is not a substitute for reality.
It's not a substitute.
But boy, it gives you a lot more things to try out in a short period of time. So these are just...
so these are all just samples of some of the stuff we talk about in those 7 hours.
We don't have an example of one of our poll questions or one of our charming break time pictures.
We don't.
Okay.
We had a little more fun to our actual training. Will you discuss the pending ACA standard, which is to replace RESNETs after the required deadline? We can allude
pending,
to that in the
pending,
training,
I believe, is the phrase, Greg.
But this training is really designed to help you meet the requirements that RESNET has put in place for this year. So that is what our training is about, to ensure that you can pass those 2 exams. And
any of these differences, that they are fair game to discuss. The ACA standard, whatever that is, section B, I can't remember, but 12
Appendix A here.
Appendix A.
Pulled up the...
Yeah, so there's a possibility.
What you're talking about, Greg.
The debate is not over, as it isn't in our industry at all, ever. We expect these standards to change, evolve. There are some distinct differences between the ACA standard, the BPI legacy standard, the BPI 1200 standard, current RESNET standard. All these things are, they don't all agree, and that's worthy subject for talking about where the difference is. Our goal in this particular training is to have you have enough overall conceptual understanding to understand why you're following the protocol, and then have a specific understanding about the protocol that you are expected to comply with. A detail about that, which is that if we don't know when the standard may change, we anticipate it's possibly changing in August, possibly. If so, anyone taking and passing the test before that is good to go. There is an expectation in our industry as RESNET raters, no matter what you are, that whatever you got certified on, you are expected to stay current with the standard as it evolves. And your provider should support you in that.
Yes. So someone asks, can you give a brief overview of PSD, including products and services you offer, which is a great question.
It is a good question.
And I pulled up our website here. We do a number of different things. We implement and support some new and whole house programs in the Northeast.
New homes and retrofit programs.
Yeah, we are a RESNET QA provider for raters. We have engineering services. We develop software. We're most known for our Treat software, but we have some others. We deliver training for raters on our software, for contractors, for building engineers. The
history of PSD goes way back. Our boss, Greg Thomas, has been doing this sort of work for, I want to say, 35 years or so. PSD itself, as a performance systems development, is incorporated sometime in the 90s. And historically, for about 11 years, we also had our own performance contracting company, which we, 2001 through 2011, we were home performance contractor, as well as this consulting and implementation.
I spent a lot of time in crawl spaces.
You spent a lot of time in crawl spaces. I have damaged a fair amount of clothes with
foam.
Yeah.
So that's all we had for you today. If you're interested in this or any other of our trainings, you can go to psdconsulting.com. That's our website. I'll send it through the chat here just so you have it. And select training. You can see our discounted trainings. We have if you're in New York, we have a number of other trainings that receive the 50% discount. And we offer Energy Star 3.0 training for raters. Rater training, we've now moved to this cool new hybrid model with the Northeast HERS Alliance for getting half of your rater training online to make it a little more feasible. Yeah, so check it out. And if you think of questions after, feel free to email us or give us a call. And thanks for attending.
Thank you.